Thursday evening, the Donovan Live Postgame Show. I'm Dave Natale along with Jim Donovan. We're brought to you tonight by Cleveland Clinic. Learn more about prostate cancer risk factors and treatment options from Ohio's #1 prostate cancer team. Visit clevelandclinic.org/prostate cancer. And Jimmy, by the way, thanks to the Cleveland Clinic. It's good to have Cleveland Clinic aboard as a sponsor here of our show.
Sure.
I haven't had a chance to chat with you in a couple of days and really fascinated by some of the things that Browns general manager John Dorsey had to say yesterday as he had a chance to kind of, as GMs do a lot of times during the halfway point of the season, during the bye week or what have you, they come down and give you a state of the franchise and kind of where their heads are at. And with John Dorsey, the questions mostly focused obviously around the future and what the plan is going to be at head coach once the season comes to an end after these final 6 games.
Yeah, and I understand where the questions are coming from, and that's obviously what everyone was concerned about, and we are concerned about it, where they're going to go. And they're the first team really in the marketplace now that has declared themselves that they're looking for a head coach. So I would say that the process is going along the way that you would think it would go along. I think that he has a small band of people that he's organized. And I want to think this too, and I don't have any concrete evidence that this is true, but I would like to think that this probably, Dino, was part of his interview process in the first place when he got the job just about a year ago, right? I mean, he came here like at the end of November, beginning of December last year. But I'm sure when he was with the Haslams and they were talking about him coming on and taking the job as GM, I mean, the numbers were what they were. I mean, they had only won 1 game the year before, and at the time he was interviewing, no games last season, which they ended up not winning any games. So I'm sure they had to sit and say, all right, if we had to go and start a coaching search, how would you do that? I think that that's probably a part of every general manager's interview because that is the most important thing that a general manager would do. And I know everyone's saying, well, what about the draft? And that's true, the draft. But the thing that they cherish the most is to be able to name their own head coach. But they also realize it will define their tenure on that particular job. Some only get to name one general manager. Phil Savage will always tell you he didn't get to name any.
0.
Yeah, because Romeo Crennel was already in the fold, basically. They had decided that they were going to go that way. Phil Savage came in. They married up with Romeo, and they were going to get rid of Romeo a couple of years in, and Phil was waiting to name the head coach but lost his job. John Dorsey did not hire Andy Reid in Kansas City. Andy Reid had been hired a couple of weeks just before John Dorsey came on as the general manager of the Chiefs. So therefore, this is it. Yeah, this is his first time. Yeah, this is a big shot for him. And it was interesting that he realizes the importance of the decision. He says as he's driving home every night, it hits him that you can't foul this up.
No. You
got to nail this pick. And I'm glad that he comes out and says that because it's a very attractive job right now for people out there.
You know, and he seemingly has solved the other big issue, getting the quarterback right. He looks like he got that done. You know, it looks like Baker Mayfield's the guy. So that's step 1. And now you got to get the coach. But Jimmy, you have to get a coach that's going to be able to bring out the best in the franchise quarterback. And I'm not saying that Baker Mayfield needs to be sitting in the room in the interview when they bring in all these candidates in January. But obviously, the ability of the coach to relate to him, to mesh with him, to have chemistry with Mayfield. I mean, to me, and I don't know how you do it unless Baker doesn't get a say, or doesn't have a say, or doesn't meet the candidates beforehand, or doesn't get a vote, or doesn't get a chance to weigh in on who the Browns are looking at. It's an interesting dynamic, but I think you have to think about that, right?
Yeah, I think you do. I'm not a big fan of Baker having a lot of input into the coaching thing. I don't think he's earned that yet. And I understand the head coaching decision is going to be vital to how John Dorsey, how his tenure here in Cleveland, how his, what his Wikipedia page is going to look like as far as, what did he do as the general manager of the Cleveland Browns. And I understand that. And I understand in a number of NFL cities right now, okay, the relationship between head coach and star quarterback kind of tells whether or not the head coach is in good standing with the football team. For instance, Mike McCarthy reportedly is not in good standing with Aaron Rodgers, and people are saying, well, they're not going to get rid of Aaron Rodgers, so they'll get rid of Mike McCarthy at the end of the year. Now, he could be a candidate for the Browns head coaching job, and I understand that, okay? I don't know what John Harbaugh's relationship with Joe Flacco is right now, but that situation seems a little iffy. Flacco has a hip injury right now. There's the whole Lamar Jackson scenario that they're kind of pushing him into the lineup. Flacco didn't throw the ball to him at a key moment of a game against the Steelers, so that can be a little rough. Bill Belichick and Tom Brady have had some rough edges, okay, the last couple of years over the whole Jimmy Garoppolo scenario. But Baker Mayfield is very new to the league, and I think they understand they want to get a coach that will be good for Baker Mayfield, but I don't know that Baker Mayfield, you want to give him that kind of
vote.
Give him a vote on that.
Yeah,
because I think Baker Mayfield is in a phenomenal position inside the Browns locker room right now. Those guys would follow him through fire right now. But has he earned the right to say, well, I don't want that guy, I want this guy?
Right.
I think that's a very, very, shaky limb to go out on.
Yeah, because it's and I heard radio shows, and that's why I wanted to bring up that. I heard radio shows talking about this today, and it's like Baker Mayfield, like you said, he's a rookie. You want to make sure you're doing right by him, but you don't want to overly empower him.
Right.
And we saw that obviously with LeBron James for years and years and years with the Cavaliers. You want to make sure that you're doing the best thing for your franchise, but you don't want to set up dissension in the locker room because you're giving one player too much power, especially when you've got 53 players on a roster. Yeah,
and here's the other thing, too. I think Baker Mayfield was shocked, at the explosion in the Browns organization a couple of weeks ago when the head coach and the offensive coordinator are fired on one day. Okay, that doesn't happen really where he's been before. It didn't happen. I mean, Bob Stoops stepped down from the position of Oklahoma's head coach, but he did so a couple of weeks before they went to summer training camp, okay? This was on game week of the Pittsburgh Steelers. After that game on Monday as they get set for Kansas City, his head coach is gone and his offensive coordinator is gone. And I don't think Baker wanted to be involved in that. I mean, I just think he gave the proper answer. Wow, this is the business of the NFL, and it is a big-time business. There's no doubt about it. So I trust John Dorsey and Elliott Wolf and Alonzo Highsmith that they are going to have Baker Mayfield in mind when they name the head coach. But I don't think Mayfield makes 4 on his vote. They call him up on a conference call and he votes yay or nay on a candidate.
Yeah. Hey, Bake, what do you think about Mike McCarthy?
Yeah.
And by the way, I've heard that and again, we've got 6 more games to go. We've got 7 weeks until the season's over. But people are starting to say, well, geez, if Mike McCarthy gets fired or quits Green Bay because of the power struggle you just mentioned with Aaron Rodgers, and what the problem is, because of his past relationship with John Dorsey, Elliott Wolf, Alonzo Highsmith, he would be a candidate that would imagine as possible. And we're going to start hearing that speculation is going to really start to heat up as coordinators continue to rise and fall, and head coaches that have legitimate championship experience might become available.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And the other thing is how attractive this job is right now. And John Dorsey laid that out very well, very succinctly yesterday. They're going to have plenty of cap room. They have 11 draft choices. They have the quarterback.
Yes.
They obviously have a running back. They have the pass rushers now. Yep. They've got a cornerback, a young cornerback in Jarvis Landry, and they have a core of young players now that are already in place. And as you said, they have 6 more games to even learn the NFL game a little bit more and a little bit better before they go into their first off season. Realize this, a couple of years ago when we were going through the every other year firing a coach, there were guys that wouldn't even interview here. Adam Gase.
Perfect example.
2 or 3 times, turned them down, wouldn't even interview here.
The hot coordinator, he was coming up from Denver. he's a
Peyton Manning's guy.
Peyton Manning's guy, and I mean that became because everybody thought, well, Peyton Manning's going to come run the organization when he's done playing football. Yeah. Adam Gase would be the perfect head coach.
And then Adam Gase went to Chicago for a year, and everyone said, okay, well now he realizes Peyton Manning's gone. He's in Chicago. He'll definitely come here. Nope. Not going to interview there. He grabbed the Miami job before the Browns could even dial his number. And there are other guys, too. I mean, Chip Kelly played the Browns.
Big time.
Okay, he played the Browns.
Big time.
Absolutely. And there were others, too. And there are probably guys that we don't even know that wouldn't even take an interview. I mean, John Fox, I don't think, took an interview with them when he became available after he lost the Carolina job. That's not going to be the case now because this is a good situation now. Plus, that analytics stuff is gone. Well, I mean, it's there. I mean,
it's there.
I mean, when you go on their website, you go to stats. That's analytics, okay? But they're not deciding players really through an equation, a Pythagorean's theorem, or something like that.
Yes.
Whatever it is.
Yes. And and not to be unkind to Sashi Brown and Dee Podesta and that group, but when John Dorsey calls. People, I mean, he's got some cachet in the league. He played. He worked his way up as a scout, as an assistant, then as assistant GM, and then as a general manager. He's got contacts, and he's got credibility, which I don't think Sashi Brown necessarily had.
No,
as a GM. Sorry, I mean, not to be unkind, but that's what it is.
Well, and the other thing too, Dino, and even above Sashi Brown and all those people, the ownership. That family, the Haslams, they had to get themselves out of this reputation of being quick trigger. They blow people up. You're in, you're out. And maybe that's where going with Hugh Jackson for 2.5 years will earn them a little bit of that. But Dorsey becomes the buffer to all of that. Okay, and the whole landscape has changed. And again, now we don't know what the final mark is going to be here. This might even look better. At the end of the regular season, because we'll see what transpires after that game against Atlanta last week. Is that going to be the way they're going to play the rest of the way, or was that just a one-time deal?
Right, or is it more like the Kansas City game?
Right.
I mean, because here's the thing, and there's another thing to think about. You got 6 games to go. Let's just say, for hypotheticals, we can have some fun on this show. Let's say the Browns go 3-3. In their last 6 games. I mean, they got 2 with Cincinnati. I mean, you've got some tough ones. You've got the Carolinas in there, but you've got the Ravens. I mean, you've got teams I think the Browns can play with. Let's say they go 3-3. Gregg Williams at that point is 4-4 as the interim head coach. I'm not saying he deserves to be automatically promoted, but I mean, he's made a heck of a case to be. He'll get his interview, as John Dorsey says, but he'll have made a heck of a case as to why things should stay status quo because things are on the way up.
Well, that will be interesting. That's tricky.
Yeah.
I mean, that is really tricky. He's going to get an interview.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what he's been promised, okay? Here's the thing that will also be tricky is if they go outside and they bring in a new head coach and they like the way things have been going here and they would love to have Gregg Williams stay as the defensive coordinator. Is he comfortable enough to stay? Is the new head coach comfortable enough to have him? Or does the new head coach have a staff that he wants to bring in? The same is true for Freddie Kitchens, who is getting very high marks for the way he's organized and run the Browns offense the last couple of weeks, and that Baker Mayfield is flourishing in this offense, as is Nick Chubb. And the team is overall. I mean, can you marry these coordinators to a head coach, or is that a wrong step to make? That's where it gets tricky.
Is that going back to the problem the Browns have had in the Haslam era with marrying GMs and coaches, which they finally seem like now they're going to get off of that pattern here with letting John Dorsey make this hire when it comes time. We've seen teams do that with it's like, boy, we really want you to hire. I mean, I can remember when Bud Carson became the head coach of the Browns. I mean, like, didn't Art Modell more or less say, that's great, but you're going to be the head coach, but Mark Trestman's going to be your offensive coordinator?
I think so,
He's a Bernie Kosar guy.
Right.
I mean, we've seen that. I mean, I went back 30 years, but we've seen teams do that with basically saying, well, you know, you're going to be the head coach, but we really like this guy and we want him to be on your staff.
Right.
And that gets dicey sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, and it's different like in a special teams coordinator type of position. Chris Tabor made it through different head coaches. And, you know, and Chris did a good job with the, you know, when he had the right people, he did a very good job with the Browns special teams. But it's much different when you're talking offense, defensive coordinators, systems. That's the main thing, systems. I mean, the Browns defense has been in Gregg Williams' system now, it will be at the end of this year, 2 years. Right. Do you erase all of that?
Right.
You know, because when they're healthy, they play very good defense.
Right.
We'll watch how this offense goes the next 6 weeks with Freddie Kitchens at the controls of that. Do you change that completely and bring in somebody new, and do they bring in a whole new system? That's where it gets tough. That's why change is so it's so overwhelming at times.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one thing if you're, you know, if you finish out the year 2-14, or in the Browns' case, it'd be like 2-13-1, but that's not going to be the case. I mean, the Browns have actually won some games, and I mean, they're 3-6-1. I think they may win more games before all said and done. I mean, I don't know how many more, but they're going to win more games. It's you know, we saw last Sunday, you know, a situation against a playoff caliber team where this can work.
Yeah. So, well, there's a blueprint for them to win.
There's a blueprint of how it can work.
I think the next thing they have to do, and they've checked a lot of boxes on their to-do list. They won, okay? You know, after going through all of last season without winning. So they did that when they beat the Jets. They've won in the division. They beat Baltimore. They tied Pittsburgh, but they beat Baltimore, and they've got some other division games to play. They haven't played the Bengals yet, so they'll play them twice. As you mentioned, they play the Ravens at the end of the year. They've won in overtime, okay? Yep. They've lost in overtime. They've tied in overtime, so they've done that, okay? But the next one is they need to win on the road.
Yes, because they've won at home. I mean, that's great.
I mean, this is years now. They haven't won on the road in years. So that's the next thing. They have an opportunity, I think, next week to win.
I do too.
Yeah.
I do too. Okay, last point with the Browns I want to bring up, and it's another Gregg Williams factor. You notice, I feel like the last 2 weeks, we haven't talked about penalties. We haven't really talked too much about turnovers, and we haven't talked. You know, I don't think I heard you or Doug Deacon lament about the special teams.
No, you're right.
All of a sudden,
that's a good point. Yeah,
you know, those little things that maybe were getting overlooked under the Jackson regime, and it's not all on Hugh, and I don't want to say it's all on Hugh, but seems to be more attention to detail, and things have gotten cleaned up.
Well, they're practicing a lot better.
Yeah.
And there's more demand put on them, and there are more consequences put on them that you practice better. You know, they had a terrible practice week going into the Pittsburgh game. And it showed.
It showed.
I mean, you know, you can't, not many teams can do it. They definitely can't push a button on Sunday after having a lousy week, you know, Monday through Saturday and say, here we go. They're not there. No. I don't know when they'll ever be there, but they're definitely not there. They need to really work, you know, hard during the week. He does work them hard during the week. They went back last week and they tackled all week long because he was furious that they missed so many tackles in the Kansas City game. And they did. They missed a lot of tackles. I really can't remember them missing any tackles last Sunday against Atlanta. I mean, a guy might catch the ball, but he went down.
Yeah.
Okay. And you're right. The special teams, which was a real Achilles heel for them all season long. You held your breath when they were covering a punt or when they were punting, okay? And not because they cold quit, but were they going to get a punt blocked? That stuff has been cleaned up. But I think it's being cleaned up in the afternoons, Monday through Saturday. And then on Sunday, it looks better.
And it shows.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, and it's certainly something to watch. All right, enjoy a well-deserved weekend off.
Thank you.
You get to you know, spend some time on the tractor and be away from.
Looks
the
like
stadium.
I'll be plowing snow on the tractor more than plowing, you know, other stuff.
Before I mention also tonight on Channel 3 News at 11, it is Throwback Thursday. Two of your former mates are going to be back, Tim White and Ramona Robinson.
Wow.
That's gonna be fun. You've talked about that. Was, you know, it was great to reunite with Robin last week because obviously you guys did all the 7 o'clock shows together.
Right.
But you were with Tim and Ramona for a long time on the same anchor desk, night after night after night.
Oh, I think I was with Ramona 15 years, and I think Tim was here 8 or 9 years. I mean, you know, we really we had a great time together. They were really good together, and those were good days here at Channel 3. I mean, We covered a lot of things. We did a lot of things. We made the move. That anchor team made the move from the old building over to the new building.
Yeah.
And before this building was all wired and ready to go, we used to we would be over here, and then we would drive over to the old building to do the show because the control rooms weren't wired in yet. So, I mean, we would all get, you know, at about 10 to 11, for the 11 o'clock news, we would be over here and then say, okay, we get our coats on, and we go over to the old building, park, and then go in, do the show, come back here, get your stuff, and go home. But we did a lot of things together, yeah. It's great to see them back, really is.
Yeah, that'll be tonight at Channel 3 News at 11. Have a great weekend. We'll see you back here for the Donovan Live Postgame Show on Monday. And again, we've been brought to you tonight by Cleveland Clinic. Remember, you can learn more about prostate cancer risk factors and treatment. You go right now to Ohio's #1 prostate cancer team. That's Cleveland Clinic. Visit them on the web, clevelandclinic.org/prostate cancer. For Jim Donovan, I'm Dave DiNatale. Thanks for watching the Donovan Live Postgame Show on WKYC's Facebook Live.